back, baby.
Offense, you know what to do.
Football time in Tennessee.
That's it.
Give me Tennessee.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the 1796 Sports Podcast, where we are joined by the one and only Billy Derrick, myself, and Jim, aka Normal Vol Fan, where we're going to preview Tennessee versus Vanderbilt in Nashville, West End, Neyland West. Anyway, this is probably the biggest Tennessee Vanderbilt game since at least 2016.
Ever. No, ever.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm leaning to as well, Jim. Billy, can you remember a bigger Tennessee Vanderbilt game?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of 2016, but I got asked a question today by somebody. When's the last time both of these teams were at 6 wins as they were playing? And I thought it was 2016, but I think Vandy was at 5 that year.
Yeah, I think they were.
So think about that. I mean, that's because Vanderbilt, has been so bad. But
Vandy.
yeah, but yeah, it's for both. It's not just Tennessee; it's Vanderbilt trying to keep this match. I mean, they haven't played as well as of late here, but I think a lot of it is because of Diego Pavia, but it's also they've got a chance to knock Tennessee out of the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
This would be, I mean, that'd be the best Vanderbilt football season ever.
Yeah. I mean, me and Jim both know, and obviously Billy. I mean, Vanderbilt is no slouch this year, although, like you said, they have been not playing as well down the stretch, but, there's nothing Vanderbilt and Clark Lee and the whole program would rather do than, just put a fire extinguisher all over Tennessee's playoff hopes. That is right now burning bright, but it would quickly get extinguished if Vanderbilt were to come out on top. Jim, what's your main I don't know how to, I guess concern would be the word. What could you see going wrong for Tennessee?
Slow starts.
Yep.
I mean, you play a UTEP team who's absolutely garbage. I mean, the first quarter reminded me a lot of Austin Peay, a couple of years ago or last year, where it looked like Tennessee was really focused on this game coming up this week. That's what it reminded me of, or what made me think of what was going on. Nico looked absolutely terrible the first quarter. I mean, he was like 2 for 6. He was missing people left and right. The first play of the game, it should have been a pick.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, Tennessee is obviously the better team. Vandy is way better than what we are used to. Diego Pavia is a really good player. The way I look at it is, if you stop him and limit him, it shouldn't be even a question who wins this game. But Diego, I mean, he's done it to Alabama. He's played really well in a lot of games this year. So, again, the biggest thing for Tennessee is do not come out slow. Like they've done it all year. I mean, Ryan, we know, and I'm sure Billy's watched games before, but like, they have come out slow in many games this year, and they just can't let it happen. This is not the game. I posted on Twitter. They can't be 95% there, 99% there. They have to be 110% there, because this is it. You win, you're in. I don't even care about a host at this point. Like, would it be nice? Yes, but like, get into the playoff. That's it. That's all we want.
Yeah, 100%. Pretty much the only game Tennessee has started fast is recently is Georgia, which was miraculous. But then we all know what happened.
Down.
Yeah, exactly.
They slow down. It's like we're normally a second half team. At Georgia, they played the first half, and then second half it was like, well, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. You got to put together 60 good minutes because like you said, everything's on the line. Billy, obviously, main story for Vanderbilt football this year is Diego Pavia and what's the tight end's name? Eli Stowers.
Yeah.
And Tim Beck and the, just injection of energy they've brought to that offense. But what are some other things that you think is leading Vandy to one of their best seasons in a while?
I think what a lot of people forget is that Clark Lee is running the defense now. And, you guys know this well. The last few matchups between Tennessee and Vanderbilt, I think Vandy's been outscored over 100 to, something like 20 or 30. Like it's a ridiculous margin. And so I think he knew, not just with the Tennessee results, but also whenever they played Georgia and any other big dog in the SEC, they were nowhere close, really. I mean, they were getting blown out of the water. So I think just the way last year went, he knew he had to take over the defense, and they went into the portal for some pretty good defensive players, like Randon Fontenette, number 2, who's their anchor player. It reminds me a lot of Kyle Hamilton when he was at Notre Dame under Clark Lee. Just roams. I mean, he'll pressure the quarterback. He'll drop back into coverage. He'll make tackles. He does a lot of everything for this defense. They've got a couple of good safeties in C.J. Taylor and DeRicky Wright. Their corners are okay. They're better than they were last year. You guys saw the last couple of years. Really, anytime Tennessee and Vandy faced each other the last few years, it was just, Vandy's DBs just could not hold up. So I think they're better defensively. I think that's an underappreciated aspect of this team this year. You mentioned Pavia and Stowers, but just the coaches. I mean, bringing in Jerry Kill, a guy that he brought up Minnesota to some relevancy and some big upsets, and he's coached a ton of football, and he's a great offensive mind. Bringing him, over with Pavia and Tim Beck, and then all the New Mexico State players they brought in, Eli Stowers, and a few other guys. Like, it's just like you said, Ryan, just an injection of confidence and life that this program desperately needed, and it feels like there's some sustainability. So it's just confidence, swagger. Like, this is a different team mentally than I've seen in a while for Vanderbilt. Even a lot of the Franklin teams, they didn't come close to beating an Alabama, and they didn't, they got to 8-9 wins, but, the SEC was a little bit different back when James Franklin was coaching Vanderbilt. So I think I would go defense, Ryan, and then just their mentality. I think people are aware of that around the conference. Vandy hasn't really been blown out this year, other than the South Carolina game. But the other side of it is they haven't really blown anybody else out. So they've been in close games. They possess the football. When Pavia's healthy, they're really good. But obviously, we'll get into that. He's not feeling great.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking would probably be the case by the time this game rolled around. That Pavia would be beat up. And
if Vandy played Tennessee like after Kentucky, middle of the season, I would have definitely picked Vandy. But tough time of the year to play Tennessee if you're Vandy.
Yeah, and probably one of the better defenses Vandy will have faced too. It's weird when you look at the stats on paper of the offense. They're all a lot of the main stats near the bottom of the SEC, but like you said, the time of possession, the ball control, the taking care of the ball is probably what Vandy's best at on offense. I mean, they've only had less than 10 turnovers this year. Is it something like 6?
Yeah, it's a crazy number. Yeah,
they just don't turn the ball over, and they control that clock. And it's the stats are a little misleading. The offense, although it hasn't scored more than 24 since the Ball State game, it's still dangerous. I wanted to ask you, Billy, what is the difference between this year's Vandy team in a game like Georgia State and how they pulled off that win over Alabama?
What's the difference between like those two games? Like,
yeah, just how did they lose to Georgia State in historic Turner Field and then beat Alabama?
Well, I think going back to that week, Clark was asked about how the team's feeling, how they're preparing for this week, and he point blank said to us, honestly, when we were at the availability, he said, "We have not prepared the way we should be preparing for this." He just flat out said it, and so there's kind of a weird feeling going into that week. And why would these are 18 to 22-year kids? I understand it. You're playing at Turner Field against Georgia State. A stadium that I don't think any SEC team has ever played a football game at. I mean, that was a dumb opponent, time of year, location, just awful scheduling on Vanderbilt's part, but they didn't handle it well. they weren't prepared. They weren't in it. I think similar to Tennessee's Arkansas performance, that they just didn't show up. They didn't show up, and we saw the floor for this Vandy team. This floor is still pretty bad. Like, they can lose to Georgia State. But their ceiling, we saw, they're good enough to beat an Alabama team that at this point looks a little bit even more beatable. I mean, what a roller coaster of a season. I thought, early in the season after they beat Georgia, they were the team to beat. They're winning it all. Then they lose to Vandy, and, they may not even make the playoff. But then they get rolling again, and people are like, well, I think Alabama's, back to a national championship contender, and then they lose this past weekend. So I still think it's a good win. I mean, you were a 23-point underdog. So I think, Ryan, it's just this team, when they're clicking and when everything's going well, they're converting third downs, they're taking care of the football, they're forcing turnovers, they can beat anybody. But that's a very tight formula, and that's hard to do and perfectly execute every week. But they've done it. They did it against Alabama. They did it on the road at Kentucky. They did it at Auburn. But they didn't do it against Georgia State. They certainly didn't do it against South Carolina. So I think it's just, you saw the floor and the ceiling of this team, and they're not good enough. They're more talented than they were last year, but they're still not good enough to overcome some mistakes that maybe a Tennessee can against a Oklahoma, early in the season, or some other result where Tennessee maybe didn't play great, but they still got the win. Vanderbilt, and in most years, they're not able to do that. But specifically this year, they're still not talented enough to overcome, not being disciplined and turn the football over.
Yeah, it reminds me a whole lot of the Mike Vrabel Titans. A lot of close games, and you're never really going to get blown out. But
yeah, that's a good point.
The margin for error is so small. But, a couple of things go your way, you're sitting at, 8-3 instead of 6-5. Like, the Missouri game was anybody's. It was a toss up, and we can dissect Vanderbilt's schedule all night long. But Jim, I wanted to ask you, do you think I should go to this game when I haven't been in attendance at West End for a Tennessee victory over Vanderbilt since 2010?
I'd be going to the game if I had $400 extra.
Yeah, it's probably the toughest ticket to get over there.
Here's my deal about this game. I mean, this is essentially a playoff game. I mean, obviously not for Vanderbilt, but Tennessee, you win, you're in. So all the Tennessee fans, which, again, we know it's going to be mostly Tennessee fans. I mean, it's in the middle of the state. There are going to be a lot of Vandy fans, too. I'm not saying there's going to be a crazy number, but, this is it. This is the game. We could focus on the playoff game after Saturday. This could be the end of your season, other than a bowl game, which no one's going to care about if you lose. So, yeah, I'd recommend going to this game. If you can go, I'd be there and, be loud when Diego Pavia's trying to run around like Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, the thing is, though, I was there in 2012. We got beat 41-18. I was there in 2016. Got beat 45-34. I was there in 2018. Got beat, I don't even remember the score of that one, like 34-7 or something stupid. And I didn't go in 2020, in the COVID year when Tennessee won. Didn't go 2 years ago, and didn't go in 2014 when we won. So what's your answer now, Jim?
I'm just saying you might not get a better game to go to.
Yeah.
I don't believe in curses or anything like that, or whatever jinxes. But if I was in Clarksville, I'm going. Like I said, if I had extra $400, I'd be coming from North Carolina to go to Nashville.
Yeah, I mean the stakes are certainly there. It's going to be a game, like you said, a lot of Tennessee fans will go to. I mean, a lot of Tennessee fans go to that game when we're, 5-6. Like, it's a. And to your point, Jim, I don't know if Tennessee's going to have the home field advantage they normally do against Vanderbilt, because, Vanderbilt fans are excited about this season, and and for better or worse, I mean, this is a playoff game for Vanderbilt too. I mean, this is the most important thing they have to play for left this year. I mean, I think they're going to treat it just as important of a game as Tennessee's treating it. So it's going to be interesting, just crowd split wise. But Billy, I want to talk about what I think is one of the main differences for Vanderbilt this year. Special teams. It's probably one of the best units of special teams Vanderbilt has had in years. Um, Shout out Knoxville Catholic for y'all's kicker, Brock Taylor.
Yep.
Shout out Jesse Mirko, however you pronounce that. One of the best punters in the SEC. I mean, he's incredible. 16 punts inside the 20 this year. And the X factor, Martell Height, who also plays corner, like he's electric. He can house one at any moment. So it's Tennessee better be watching out for Mr. Martell Height.
Yeah, he's been really good in the punt return game, and he's had some big, not just like 40 or 50 yard punt returns. He's had several of those, but when they come in the game, he had a big one against Alcorn State. But the special, like they had a couple other special teams at defensive touchdowns in that game. He had like over 100 punt return yards in that game, but he had a huge one at Auburn. If you guys go back and watch the highlights, that would be a good example of how much of an impact he had in that game and he has had this season. So he's absolutely a guy to watch. He's not the biggest kid, but he's athletic. And probably, when he's running, it might remind you of a little bit of Boo Carter and how dangerous he is in the special teams game. So I think, those punt returns and punt return coverage for both teams are going to be massive. Tennessee has killed Vanderbilt in the punt return game in the past, especially under Josh Heupel. So I think Vanderbilt's going to try to do that to Tennessee to flip fields. But also, you mentioned with Jesse Mirko, transfer from Ohio State, he's been phenomenal. I mean, he's got it. Is it the Lou Groza? I think is that the punter award?
I think that's the place kicker award.
Okay, well, the punter. Either way,
Ray Guy is the punter.
Ray
award.
Guy, yeah, he's up for the Ray Guy, and then Brock Taylor, the Knoxville kid, is up for the Groza. I don't know that they probably don't win them, but to be up for it is big, and that's a Clark. They've always been in it since year one. Remember that awful year one that Vandy went 2-10. They had a great kicker, and then they had a really good punter too. So they've always had great kickers and punters. Their coverage though hasn't been as good as it has been this season. Their kickoff coverage has been really good. So I think that's an underrated part of this game, Ryan, where Vanderbilt is not as weak in the special teams game as they have been in the past under Clark Lee. They're pretty good. I mean, they haven't made a ton of mistakes. Luther Burden got loose on them a couple times, and then I want to say there was another punt returner that got loose on them, but they've been solid in kick return coverage, and Mirko and Taylor. I think they could have an impact on this game, and they're going to have to because Vanderbilt, I think it's going to be tough to score touchdowns on this Tennessee defense. So Taylor's going to have opportunities, and Mirko is going to, every time he punts, he's going to want to pin Tennessee deep. So you're right. They've been good, and they're going to have to be good against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of things that Vanderbilt is going to need to have a chance of winning. And, they've played complementary football all year, the Commodores have. Like, you go back to the Alabama game, I mean, Vanderbilt has that good opening drive, scores a touchdown. Then they get a pick six, on Alabama's first possession. They forced several turnovers from Quinn Ewers in the Texas game that they lost by 3. It's pretty impressive the way that each side of the ball is complementing each other for Vanderbilt. And I want to dive into the defense now, Vanderbilt's defense. I mean, you mentioned the standout players, but like you said with Clark Lee calling the shots, him being a defensive guy anyway, like every time I've watched Vanderbilt this year, I've just noticed how hard they hit. Like, and that may just be the influx of talent that you were talking about too, but they just look like a different team. And you also mentioned the word swagger. I mean, they fly around to the football and make plays.
Yeah, they do, and it's a good point. How it seems kind of dumb to talk about, but I mean, how hard they hit. They they're not scared. Last year they were hesitant and they were just not a good defense at all last year. They were awful actually. So, but this year they've bumped up to like top 40 or top 50 nationally in total defense, whereas last year, they were in the hundreds. So they've made drastic changes to their defense. But guys, they've got to get pressure. I mean, you go back to that LSU game, Garrett Nussmeier had all day to throw the football. So I think that's one aspect that they haven't been as strong in the last couple of weeks. But against Alabama, Ryan, this is a game. You remember that strip sack against Bama was massive in that game. Vandy's going to have to come up with a strip sack and an interception. I think in this game now, I think without it they could still maybe win, but I think they need plays like that. They need momentum plays like that. But Brandon Fontenette, he is the guy to watch, number 2. You guys are going to look at him and go, damn, that's a legit SEC player, a player that Vanderbilt hasn't had a ton of recently. And then on the the linebacker spot, they're better with Lakeson Patterson, local kid, and then you've also got some Longwell, another local kid as well. But they're more athletic. They swarm the football, but they will get beat one-on-one occasionally. So I could see a Brazel, just beat a guy one-on-one, or Squirrel White, or Dylan Sampson just isolate Sampson on a route. Like I think Tennessee knows they'll be able to do that. So Vanderbilt's got to be really sound. And I wonder how much they blitz in this game, because you can also get exposed when you blitz. But yeah, they're coached well, and they do all the little things right. They're not gonna be out of position, but man on man, they will get beat occasionally one-on-one and have a few breakdowns here or there.
Yeah, as any defense can get beat in college football. So, the 3-3-5 is Tennessee's Achilles heel. The 3 down linemen, everybody else is off the line. And Vanderbilt was one of the first teams 4 years ago. I think it was in Heupel's first year when Vanderbilt came to Neyland in 2021 to do that. And it worked in that game for portions of that game, but Tennessee ended up just having more talent that day. But Vanderbilt was one of the first teams to do that. Jim, you of course know about the 3 down linemen and how Tennessee has struggled with it this year. Do you want Tennessee to hand the ball off to Dylan Sampson 30 plus times and just pound the rock, or do you want to see us bang our heads against the wall and try to pass it some more?
I think you got to get Nico involved early in this game. I think you need to get him in some type of rhythm. But yeah, I mean, Dylan Sampson in people who know football eyes is a Heisman contender. I mean, this guy is Tennessee's offense this year. Without him, I mean, we'd probably be averaging 14 points a game, it feels like sometimes. But got to get Nico going. You have to get him confident. And Billy, you were talking about getting beat deep. Nico struggled with that this year, and he kind of turns into Joe Milton 2.0 and overthrows a guy by 1.5 feet. And because we've had, Ryan, right? We've had multiple opportunities with guys wide open. And they're always 3 feet, 2 feet in front of them, and it's just Nico's got to be better, because I agree with Billy. I think Vanderbilt's going to get beat 4 to 5 times in this game, but can Nico finish? Can he get a couple of those and get Tennessee down the field? I don't know. Dylan Sampson's going to get his. He always does. He has I think he has 100 yards every game this year. I mean, he's a stud. But yeah, I think Nico's got to be better. He can't be first quarter Nico against UTEP. I'll tell you that, because that's just crazy. The offensive line, our running offensive line has been phenomenal this year. It's just you got to protect Nico. The running backs have to block. They just don't know how, it feels like. Sometimes Peyton Lewis completely whiffed on a safety against UTEP, and it was free sacks all day for that safety. So protect Nico, let him throw a little bit, get him in a rhythm. Tennessee's defense, we all three of us know, is phenomenal this year, and I think Tennessee will get the win. I mean, they should get the win, but like I said, I'm not sleeping on Vandy. They're better than we're used to, and even though it's in Nashville, again, SEC teams have obviously shown that home field advantage is a thing this year, and yeah, that's what I think. Get Nico involved.
Yeah, it would be nice to see Nico keep it on those read options, and hurt Vanderbilt early because you've mentioned it, Jim, multiple times this year. There's 10 yards of space a lot of times when he could have kept the ball and he just didn't. And I've heard a lot of people say this, in the game against UTEP on Saturday. I mean, it looked like Nico was seeing ghost and just missing the open guys because he was scared to get killed. Because, like you said, I mean, Peyton Lewis is a freshman. I know that. The freshman running backs are never great at pass blocking, but my goodness, they were coming scot-free. And, it's hard to put a ball accurately when you're scared you're about to get blown up. But it's still his responsibility at the end of the day to hit the open guys. And he missed at least 3 in that first quarter. But to his credit, he rebounded. Billy, I want to talk about Vanderbilt's offense some more. I don't think it could be understated how big obviously Diego Pavia is, but a lot of people don't know that Stowers came from the same New Mexico State team, and he is Vanderbilt's leading receiver. Like besides Stowers though, who has the ability to make some plays receiving wise?
Well, that's been a little bit of the concern here. As of late, it hasn't really been anybody. But besides Stowers, Quincy Skinner is a veteran guy. He's a solid player. He's not an elite receiver by any means. He's a middle of the road SEC player, but he's a possession type guy. He had that early touchdown, 63-yard touchdown against LSU, just kind of got loose. But other than that, he hasn't done a ton this year. He's made some big catches and big moments. Like he's made some big 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 catches, especially if you go back to the Alabama game. But other than him, another local kid, Junior Sherrill, I think he's the best. I think he's better than Skinner. I think he's the best receiver. But that's not saying much in this receiving core. They're guys that are serviceable. They've been good enough within the offense. But Skinner and Sherrill are not guys that would be 1s or 2s on any other SEC team. I don't think. Now Sherrill, I think, is a pretty good slot receiver that might start at some SEC schools, but they're not gonna just take the top off your defense, unless they scheme it open. You saw against Alabama on a 4th and 1 where Pavia faked short in the flat to Stowers, and then there goes Sherrill up the middle of the field wide open, and it happened with Skinner. So they scheme guys open. It's very rare to see one of their receivers just beat a guy one-on-one and out jump you or just dominate you. They do have a guy, number 11, transfer from Texas Tech, Loic Fungi. He's made some big catches here or there too, but there's not anybody that that's just super explosive. That's hurt them. But at the tight end spot, you mentioned Stowers. Cole Spence is another guy that I expected a little bit more of from this year. He's like 6'7". He's a really good blocker, but I'm interested to see if he's more involved in the passing game against Tennessee. Cedric Alexander has been good, but there haven't been as many holes open for him, and he's been banged up too. So I would say Cedric Alexander is a guy that could potentially hurt Tennessee. But other than Stowers, Ryan, I don't know that there's anybody, especially right now with how banged up they are. So that's kind of where they're at right now. They do have a kid, number 23, Newberry, who is kind of a Swiss Army knife. He has been a guy they will isolate in a one-on-one matchup and just tell him to go deep and beat a guy. He did that against Auburn in their first touchdown in that game. So Newberry's another kid to watch on some end arounds. They've got another guy, Richie Hoskins, number 5, who's kind of your token white slot guy who's not gonna beat you by any means, but he'll make a couple catches here or there. So that's kind of what they've got. They're serviceable, but nobody that's going to scare you.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason that Pavia has ran the ball, 160 something times this year. I think I saw. That's the reason he leads the team in rushing. That's the reason Vanderbilt, for better or worse, runs a damn wishbone out of shotgun most of the time. Like, they just don't have the playmakers on the outside. And
Yep.
Jim, I want you to speak to this now. Do you remember how much that UTEP quarterback hurt us in the first quarter scrambling? Like, if we let Pavia run around and do all that stuff that he can certainly do, it's going to be bad news bears for Tennessee's defense. And number one important thing for Tennessee's defense is, keeping your eyes in the right spot. Don't fall for the fakes. Don't fall for the eye discipline has got to be there on Saturday when you're facing the type of offense that Vanderbilt runs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pavia is going to stress your linebackers, and I'm not worried about our defensive line. Our defensive line has played phenomenal. I'm not sure on James Pierce's health exactly, but I'm assuming he's going to play. But the linebackers are going to be the main focus, and they're going to try and stress them out, because if you look at the Georgia game, Bobo, whatever his name is, focused on our linebackers and really took care of business in the second half. And that's my main concern. It's going to really hurt not having Peely in a game like this, because I just think you got a lot of young guys playing linebacker, and I think that's going to be the main focus. If it was me coaching Vanderbilt, I'm no professional coach, but I'd be really hounding those Tennessee linebackers and seeing what they could do. And Pavia's going to do that. He's going to run. He's going to fake. He's going to make you come forward and toss the ball and all this junk. But like I said earlier, if you stop him, again, I just don't think Tennessee's going to have a problem winning this game.
Yeah, and like Billy, you were saying, I mean, the lack of playmakers on the outside. I mean, obviously the number one priority is for Tennessee is stopping Pavia. Does anybody have anything they want to hop into before we talk about how we think this game will go? Give our little summary and our score predictions.
No, I mean, I think Jim just made a really good point with Tennessee's linebackers. I was watching that Georgia game, and 3 Georgia tight ends just really scorched Tennessee's linebackers. So I guarantee you, defensively, that's what Tim Banks is sitting there working on, because Stowers is a guy that can really hurt you. And I wonder if Vanderbilt saved some stuff for Tennessee, especially with Stowers. I mean, Stowers didn't do anything last week, and that was kind of peculiar. I know he's been banged up, but I just wonder what they've got planned up. I know they've probably got some trick plays and some new wrinkles, but that matchup, Vandy's tight ends against Tennessee's linebackers, is going to be really interesting. And I think Tennessee's offensive line against Vandy's D-line, I think if Tennessee's offensive line plays really well, they win the game. If they keep Nico clean, they win the game. But if Nico is uncomfortable and, seeing ghosts, like you said, against UTEP, I think Vandy's got a shot. So I think those are a couple of matchups to watch.
Yeah, 100%. I'll go ahead and give my prediction on how the game will go. I am very impressed with Vanderbilt this year. Their overall body of work. I mean, Billy, you could speak to this. I mean, the euphoria of the night of October 5th just must have been something Vanderbilt fans have experienced very little in any sport. I mean, it probably got close or even exceeded the baseball national championships. I mean, it was a special night for Vanderbilt. But since that point, like we've talked about, it's been kind of hit or miss on offense. Seems like the tape of that Alabama game has been helping a lot of these SEC defenses. People kind of know what to expect if they execute. The Vanderbilt offense can be slowed down. And they haven't really beaten a good team at all since then. I mean, Kentucky, Ball State, Auburn. I really think Tennessee should be just studying the South Carolina game tape and just trying to do exactly what South Carolina did. Get after Pavia, contain him. Maybe don't even try to sack him. Just keep him contained. Do that, extended rush. Just cut off him scrambling outside of the pocket, and things should go well for Tennessee's defense. The biggest thing for Tennessee, though, is like it has been all year, getting the offense going and having that fast start, like Jim said. Under Josh Heupel, Tennessee has started fast against Vanderbilt. The last time they were on West End, when Joe Milton in the rain to Jalen Hyatt on the second play of the game.
Game was over.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a similar situation. I mean, a lot of people thought Vanderbilt had a chance in that game with Tennessee coming off the South Carolina loss. People thought Tennessee was on quit watch. Vanderbilt thought they had a chance, but that did not go well for the Commodores that night, and Tennessee ran all over them. But I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I certainly don't think it'll be 59 or 56-0, whatever that score was. But I do think Tennessee finds success. I think the number one priority on offense will be them running the ball. I think Tennessee is big enough up front to kind of control Vanderbilt's run defense, which is near the bottom of the SEC. So I think that'll be what separates Tennessee offensively. And I think Nico will hit one or two big plays down the field when Vanderbilt does bust. And I'm going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers 31, Vanderbilt Commodores 17. Jimmy, you want to go? Give your prediction?
Yeah, because I got to get out of here. But again, I think Tennessee is going to be prepared for this game. I think they were way in front of the schedule against UTEP in the first quarter, and then they woke up a little bit. But I think they've been preparing for this game for 2 weeks now. But I think Tennessee's going to win this game. It's not going to be, like you said, it's not going to be 56 to whatever. It's just not the offense this year. With our defense and our corners playing the way they are, if the linebackers could stay average, give me a B-plus performance, I think Tennessee wins this game by 2 touchdowns. So I'm going to go 35-17.
Yeah, all year, Vanderbilt has proven Vegas to be dead wrong. I think they're 6-0 against the spread, something like that. And, even last week is a week that they were down 2 scores, but find a way to cover that. And so, I think Vandy definitely covers. The line is at 10.5 right now. I don't want to say that's easy money because Tennessee, I think, can be a team that sort of gets away from Vanderbilt and maybe early. But I think this team is different. We talked about it. They'll be motivated. There'll be more black and gold in the stands. Clark Lee is a Nashville guy, despises Tennessee. So, he'll have them ready. So I think that in and of itself should be enough for Vanderbilt to keep it close, compete. But I'll take Tennessee 28, Vanderbilt 24.
Barn burner.
I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah. I mean, I think with all the circumstance and this being Vanderbilt's most hated rival and all this, and them having a chance to knock Tennessee out of the playoff, I could definitely see that. But I've seen a lot of Tennessee fans scared of Vanderbilt, which I just don't get. This isn't Butch Jones and facing Patton Robinette in 2013. Like, this is year 4 of Josh Heupel. I think the talent discrepancy is still good enough for Tennessee to cover that spread. I know we haven't covered many spreads this year. Tennessee's been horrible against the spread, but surely to God, with everything on the line, they can come out and have a performance where they control the game for most of it and come out on top. So that's just what I'm feeling. But again, I could definitely see that scenario, Billy. Anything else tonight, Mr. Derrick?
No, should be fun, guys. It's I love whenever these two teams get together. I just any sport, whether it's basketball, baseball, football. I know a lot of Tennessee fans just kind of scoff over at Vanderbilt, but I think there's a generation of I don't know if it's the younger or the really older, right? I think it might be the older generation that still sees this as a year in, year out rivalry. But a lot of the younger generation has seen Tennessee dominate Vanderbilt, which is kind of interesting. So like I said, I'm really excited, and I hope it's a good game. I'll be really interested to see the crowd dynamic. I think it'll still be more Tennessee fans, but I think it could be closer to 50-50 than we've seen in the past in Nashville. So should be crazy, should be fun, should be spicy, and I'm appreciative for y'all having me on, boys.
No problem. Yeah, I guess that's it. Jim has already left the building, so I will say go Vols, and you can say whatever you want, Billy.
Go Doors.
You should have went with anchor down. Damn it.